I am wilderness ultramarathon runner, martial artist, and historical researcher James Peratt, and I spent the last 30 days living exactly like Rocky Marciano. And I will start by saying that it was not a good month at all. Real quick to overview, Rocky Marciano, the guy that was the basis for the Rocky character for the Sylvester Stallone movies, for you youngins out there, was possibly the most impressive heavyweight of all time. He went 49-0 with 43 knockouts in his career, and what's most impressive about that is he didn't even start boxing until really late in life. And additionally, he was super small, okay? I'm talking 5'11", 185 to 205 pounds as a heavyweight boxer. And this is back in the day when guys were just giant bruisers. And he was actually a failed baseball player, and then in the Army he started boxing at age 24, and just 5 years later he was the heavyweight champion of the world, which is pretty much the craziest athletic story I have ever heard in my entire life. And all of that can be laid with his insane training regime. And to be clear, Rocky, although he started boxing later in life, he had started training early in life, like not for boxing specifically, but there was something inside of him that was just restless, that warrior spirit that always wanted to train. So much so that when he was 15 years old, he actually made his own workout equipment using an old broomstick and pieces of cement to create a barbell and a punching bag made from an old mail sack that he stuffed with rags and cloths and whatever stuff he could find around the neighborhood. So that kind of fighting spirit was always in him. But like I said, he tried to play baseball and he failed at that. A lot of people would have given up or quit there, but he transitioned pretty quickly to boxing, again at age 24, and within 5 years was the heavyweight champion of the world. And all of that comes down to his insane training regime, and so I wanted to give it a try myself and specifically figure out how he mixed such insane knockout power with inexhaustible cardio. Okay, Archie Moore, one of the great boxers of the era that fought Rocky Marciano, said fighting him was like fighting an airplane propeller. This guy just never stopped throwing punches. He swarmed you, they were in your face. And as we can see by many of his knockouts, he had savage power. I mean, some of the most incredible knockout highlights in boxing history can be attributed to Rocky Marciano. So as you see with boxers today, like say Deontay Wilder and some of these guys that are known for their punching power, they are not known for their cardio. They are not known for just being able to throw more punches than their opponents can throw, let alone absorb, which is exactly what Rocky Marciano sought to do. In fact, that was one of his favorite sayings, was that he always wanted to be able to throw more punches than his opponent could. So I wanted to figure out how he could do that, and I spent 30 days living exactly like him. That is his training, his diet, mindset, all of it. And like I mentioned at the start of the video, it was not good, okay? The training was very cool. It was like, in terms of like the actual workouts themselves, separate from the boxing, the strength conditioning stuff, lots of calisthenics and like high intensity calisthenics, not just your basic like grandma planks and whatnot. Very high intensity old school calisthenics. There was also sledgehammer work for grip and strength that he liked, and specifically one thing unique to Rocky that he did was jogging backwards. He believed that it would strengthen the legs and build cardio that transferred better to the ring if you spent a lot of time jogging backwards. And it seems kind of simple, but if I'm honest, it was pretty annoying. You figure out pretty quickly that it is awkward and your feet are a lot less coordinated than you think they are. But over the course of a month, I saw big improvements, and that definitely did carry over to my boxing footwork. Additionally, he did some pretty cool things like chopping wood. Again, this is interesting because this is a strength and conditioning practice that Muhammad Ali would use years later. And recently there was a study done that showed that chopping wood, of all forms of exercise that you can do, increases your testosterone more than anything else. That's sprinting, powerlifting, none of that increases your testosterone as much as just chopping wood. So there could be something there, because that was, again, Rocky's one of his favorite strength conditioning methods. But overall, the training was pretty similar to what I did in prison in terms of just high volume calisthenics in terms of the cardio stuff, your burpees, your split squat jumps, air squats, wall sits, whatnot. and then high intensity stuff, just high intensity push-ups, pull-ups, and really working these muscles till failure, which is something that really, even today with all the science and modern training methodologies we have, you can't beat. I mean, just high volume calisthenics, it's the same thing that everyone from the Russian Olympic teams to the Dagestani MMA fighters are massive fans of high volume calisthenics, because it builds such a balance of strength and endurance while also torching fat, keeping your body weight low, and it's just really hard to beat in terms of combat athlete strength training. Now, at his peak, Rocky was actually measured as throwing a punch with force equal to that of an armor-piercing bullet. And this isn't just like some publicity stunt. This was actually the U.S. military that brought him in and tested that, which is pretty incredible. However, when you look at like towards the peak of his career, he was actually training with such crazy intensity and such power that he was hitting a custom 300-pound heavy bag for his heavy bag workouts, and he actually filled the thing with nuts and bolts. I mean, that is just insane. The bone density in his hands must have been just off the charts. So it's really no wonder that he can knock people out like that. And his, more than just the training methodologies, his dedication to training is what he was known for. Okay, he was Spartan in all things. He never missed a training session, never missed a rep, never cheated on his diet. Basically, like the modern equivalent to Rocky Marciano today would be like Khabib Nurmagomedov, okay, the Dagestani MMA fighter who retired a few years ago undefeated and was likely the most dominant MMA fighter in history. And same thing with him. He is strong in his Muslim faith. He doesn't go out, drink, party. He doesn't do any of that. He just trained, ate, focused, trained again, and then went to sleep. And that's all Rocky did. I mean, they're literally living like Spartans. And this is something that I talk about when I talk about ancient tribes and warriors. One reason that they could do things that many modern athletes can't, despite the technological advantages we have today, is that these ancient warriors were living the life, like every day. A Spartan lived and breathed it. Every day he woke up, trained, and recovered, and that is all he did, okay? There was no social media posing, drinking, partying, no going out, staying up late, no doing all of the stuff that, well, so many modern athletes do and fall victim to today. So like living it day in and day out goes a long way, as you can see with Rocky Marciano and Khabib. Additionally, Rocky was extremely tough. Okay, this mindset went beyond simple dedication to training. In the ring, for instance, in his fight against Ezzard Charles, he had his nose broken horribly. In fact, it was split open so bad that the cartilage was visible. And when the ringside doctor came over, he looked at the nose and he just shuddered. He was like, I think I have to stop the fight. And Rocky just looked up at him, cartilage ripped out of his nose, just hanging open. And he was like, give me one more round. Rocky went out there, despite the fact that he was losing the fight badly, and he flatlined Ezzard Charles and took home his belt again that night. So his mindset went beyond simple discipline. I mean, there was true grit there. This man was a warrior in the ring. Now, in terms of why this month sucked for me, it really had nothing to do with Rocky's training. I loved his training. But my wife and I moved to a different state, almost 1,000 miles, which made pretty much everything a little bit more challenging. On top of that, in the first week of my 30-day experiment, I hurt my collarbone wrestling, which, again, is just going to happen sometimes. And on top of that, I had to run I got to run in an ultramarathon last weekend, so that fell kind of right in the sweet spot for this 30-day experiment. Although an interesting note on that, I didn't actually have to alter my training so much because Rocky was a big fan of road work. He did more running than most boxers do, and that's one reason that his gas tank was just endless. So really it transitioned pretty well because I was, going to be doing running anyway. For the Rocky program, I didn't have to do a whole lot of special training given that my baseline conditioning stays pretty high for this ultramarathon, which was a 24-hour race, just running 2-mile loops over and over again for 24 hours, and I felt great when I did that. So having said that, juggling all three of those things during this 30-day experiment made it a bit challenging, but that was also a testament to the program itself because I was able to do this despite constant travel, despite having an injury in my collarbone, and just despite being completely busy and somewhat disorganized in the middle of a move, as these things go. So if you're someone who travels a lot, or if you're busy or have a hard time kind of connecting with your workouts, then this actually might be the best thing for you, because I really had no trouble actually adhering to the Rocky Marciano's training over the course of a month, despite having all this stuff going on. So today is my last day, and right now I am about to go hit my absolute last workout as Rocky Marciano. So you can join me, and fortunately for you, this entire workout is only going to take you about 1 minute. However, me, it's going to take a little longer. So let's get started. About to eat my last meal as Rocky Marciano. As you can see, we have a steak, we have a sweet potato, and we have some veggies. Pretty much every meal I have eaten for dinner through this entire month has been some variation of this. Some sort of potato, some sort of veggie, and then either steak, fish, or chicken. It's really hard to beat this in terms of general health as well as athletic recovery. I have had no issues throughout the entire month. Feeling fully fueled, fully fed, and recovering after my lifts and runs with meals like this. Conversely, for breakfast, I ate almost always the same thing, which is oatmeal, eggs, and grapefruit. For lunch, some version of meat and greens, either in a salad form or steamed greens with some fish, chicken, or steak on the side. So almost entirely a diet of meat and vegetables and fruit. Milk, also on the menu, and a little bit of tea, but absolutely zero alcohol. I don't drink personally, so that wasn't much of an issue for me this month, but if you were someone who drank and you added that into your monthly routine, I imagine that would carry over a lot in terms of your recovery, your sleep, how lean you are, etc. So I can understand why Rocky didn't drink at all in camp. Outside of camp, he would eat small amounts of things like the traditional Italian foods, because he came from a blue-collar Italian-American household. Like, there's no way he's going home for Christmas and his mom's making, spaghetti or veal parm, and he's not eating some. But it was noted that he was very specific with his portions, so he wouldn't go crazy. He would have a little bit of soul food or some home food, a cheat meal, so to speak, but he would keep the portions very, very modest, so would never get too out of control. Additionally, the fact that he ate almost the same thing every day in some variation just speaks to the Spartan attitude, the insane discipline that we've been talking about with him this whole time. So it has really been an honor to walk in his shoes this whole month, and I think, to be honest, this dinner is probably one of the things from his routine that I'm going to keep permanently. It's really hard to fault this. All of this food is nutritious. It's like high protein, good source of slow carbs, good source of fiber, and all of it can be digested with very little cost or distress to the stomach, which is something that high-end nutritionists and guys like Stan Efferdine will talk about. It's like, it's not just getting the food into you, but it's like, what is the cost of getting that food into you? Because if you get a little bit of protein and a little bit of nutrients, but your stomach is a mess constantly, that's probably not a good diet for you. So something like this, you can eat, you can digest clean, wake up feeling good the next day. That is kind of the ideal thing for an athlete and for a fighter. Additionally, it makes it easier to stay lean, and that was something that Rocky focused on a lot. He didn't want to get fat in between training camps. He wanted to stay lean, stay near his fighting weight, and he was a smaller heavyweight, fighting between 185 pounds and 205 pounds. So it actually turns out that was a deliberate decision. He wanted to be lighter, faster, wanted better cardio than his opponents, because he knew he hit like a Mack truck, so it didn't matter if he was a few pounds lighter than the guy he was fighting. So his diet was actually a big part of that, and it sounds kind of strange, but your diet can be part of your fighting strategy, and for Rocky, that was the case. Okay, so I am officially done with my 30-day experiment, living and training as Rocky Marciano, and overall, I really enjoyed this experiment, And as you can see, there were definitely some improvements in my physique. Right here, you're gonna see what I looked like going into this experiment. And now you're gonna see what I looked like at the end of this 30-day experiment. So as you can see, definitely some pretty visible changes in my body composition and my physique, and definitely my strength and endurance overall improved over the month, and I definitely enjoyed it. So if this is something you'd like to try, I have released a limited number of Rocky Marciano's training program, and I will link that below for you guys. But this is just a personal project with a complete and insane deal of historical research and detail, because I'm a huge nerd. So again, if that sounds like something that you'd like to do, or you want to try a new workout program that's easier to follow, easier to engage with, something you can do when you're traveling or when you're busy, and still get some pretty good intensity gains and results, then this is definitely a good program. So again, I will link that below for anyone who wants to try training as Rocky Marciano, and I hope you guys enjoy. Have a great day.